Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
Allah.
Just a little.
Allahu Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya lis-salah. Hayya lis-salah. Hayya lis-falah. Hayya lis-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allah Akbar.
La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa astadihi wa astaghfiruhu wa umminu bihi jalla wa ala wa la akfuruhu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. As-salahu bil huda wa din al-haq liyudhiruhu ala din kulihi walau karihal mushrikun. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him. We seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion, the way, the methodology of truth. And this way of life, known as Islam, will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. Amma ba'd fa inna asdiqal hadith kitabullah wa awtaqa al-ura kalimatul taqwa wa khayrul milali milatu Ibrahim wa khayrul sunani sunatu Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وأشرف الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن القصص هذا القرآن وخير الأمور أوزموها وشر الأمور محدثاتها وأحسن الحج حج الأنبياء وأشرف الموت قتل الشهداء وأما الأمر دلالة بعد الهدى وخير الأعمال ما نفاء وخير الهادي ما أتباع وشير الأمة أما الكلب. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said the most truthful of discourses is Kitabullah. The most trustworthy word is taqwa, or fear of Allah. The best way of life is the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best community is the community of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Remembrance of Allah is the most glorious of all things. The best of all narrations is Quran. The best acts are those requiring the highest degree of will and determination. The worst acts are those based on innovation. The best way of life is the one adopted by the prophets of Allah. The most glorious death is the death of the martyr. The most wretched blindness consists of going astray after finding the right way. Best acts are the ones that yield benefits. Best guidance is that which people may be able to follow. The worst blindness is the blindness of the heart. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna Allah yahmaru bil adli wal ihsani wa itai dhil qurba wa yanha anil fashai wal munkari wal bagi ya'ithakum la'alakum tadhakkarun. Allah commands justice, the doing of good, liberality to kith and kin. He forbids all shameful deeds and injustice and rebellion. He instructs you that you may receive admonition. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. فَمَنْ يُرِيدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Those whom Allah in His plan willeth to guide, He opens their breasts to Islam. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. O you believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and do not die except in the state of Islam. وَتَسِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You're the best peoples evolved for mankind, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong, and believing in Allah. And hold fast altogether by the rope which Allah stretches out for you, and be not divided amongst yourselves. Those whom in Allah's plan willeth to guide, He opens their breasts to Islam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. It is related on the authority of Ali radiallahu anhu that he heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, beware of a great trial that is a fitna to appear. Ali asked, what is the way out of that trial, O Prophet of Allah? The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, the book of Allah. In it are instructive narratives of preceding nations and information about things to come. The Quran informs of the future consequences and outcomes of deeds. In other words, your amal, the things that you do, the Quran is informing you about what is the outcome of that type of behavior. Because a lot of times we do things and we think, well, we done went past that. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, it gives you an outline of human behavior, and it also gives you an outline of satanic behavior, right? And how he exerts power and influence over us if we allow him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran informs us of the outcome of certain behaviors or patterns of behaviors. The Quran contains verdicts about the differences that may arise among you over just and unjust, right and wrong. The verdict of the Quran is decisive, not loose. If a tyrant relinquishes the Quran out of arrogance and rebelliousness, Allah will destroy him. And he who looks for guidance without the Quran will come upon only misguidance. That means he will be deprived of true guidance. The Quran alone is a strong means for establishing a relationship with Allah, a prudent instruction, a straight path, and a manifest truth which protects man's thoughts from taking wrong inclinations and his tongue from committing distortions. And then it goes on to say that people who introduce change in previous divine books through the tongue by mispronouncing words in them, but the Quran has been protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself until the day of judgment against all distortions. Many times, sometimes you would hear the Jews, they would mispronounce words that they would hear in the Quran. And so the people always said, As-salamu alaykum, and sometimes they said, Asamtu alaykum. Instead of peace be on you, death be on you. And Aisha, the daughter, she's a young lady at that time. You know how young people are. She wanted to get at them. Did you hear what they said? Let's move on them. He said, don't worry, we got it covered. So the Quran protects us against not only mispronunciations, but misunderstandings that we get from the Quran. See, the Quran is protection, it's hidayah, it's a rahmah, it's all kind of consistent beauties that come to us from the Quran. The scholars will never get satiated with its knowledge. They will never get enough truth out of it that they would be saying that I've investigated the Quran and I've studied it so much that I've gotten everything out of it. They won't say that. So the work shall continue forever. A time shall never come for scholars to feel that they have discovered the Quran fully and that there remains nothing else to pursue. Example, if we read the Quran 20, 30, 40 times, every time we read it, this happens, I'm sure, for all of us, every time we read in the Quran in Ramadan, we try to figure, how did I miss that ayat? There it was. You'd have read it, however old you are, you read it, because you're going to read the Quran at least once a year, but you probably read it twice a year, sometimes 3 times, because you're reading a little bit every day. And you wonder, every Ramadan, I said, how? I got notes in English and Arabic, I got all that. And I said, how did I miss that? And it happens every year, all the time, right? And this is the way the scholar, they never get so hooked up that they say, man, any book you read 5 or 10 times, you didn't got the message unless you're slow. But in the Quran, you can't do that. You can't say, man, I didn't got that book. I got it down pat. Because every time you read it, you're going to be re-shocked over and over and over again. So there's a lot more to go here on the Quran. But this is the book. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, ذَلِّكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That is the book. In it is guidance. It's hidayah. for sure, without doubt, to those who believe. Now, if you don't believe the Quran, you'll do like the now. They say, man, them is fairy tales. I don't get nothing out of that book. And you're not going to get nothing out of that book unless you open up your heart to it. Or Allah will put a seal over your eyes and heart so you won't get nothing out of it. But most people that read the book, believers or non-believers, they get something out of it. Or they get a lot of it out of it. Today I'd like to start the discussion with something related to black power. C.L. Franklin made a lecture in '69. That's Aretha Franklin's father. He was big. I mean, and not only was he big, but after I went back and studied writings of the Lamb, you don't know who that is, but if you was older, you'd know who it was. And reading books like The Message of the Black Man and all of that, you look in there and you find all those lectures, Dry Bones in the Valley, The Fall of Babylon, all of that was written in the 60s by the Lamb was spoken of, and there's the lectures right there on the internet right now. Dry Bones in the Valley, C.L. Franklin, you know. The Fall of Babylon, Babylon the Great is Fallen, that's one of our favorites. And not only did black preachers do it, white preachers did it. But these were constant themes. When I was a captain in the Nation of Islam, we had a book, we had a pamphlet called, Proper Guidance for people or something like that. And a little while later, I read the book by Norman Vincent Peale. Was that something about positive mental attitude? Something like that. The Power of Positive Thinking. And I saw those lessons that we was getting out of there, one by one, da-da-da-da-da. And we had some lessons on prayer in that book. And guess where they came from? If you read The Religion of Islam by Maulana Muhammad Ali, 1936, somewhere around there, you'll find the exact words printed by Maulana Muhammad Ali. I'm saying that to say that once you put something out, you done technically lost ownership of it. And each groups of people, each lecturer, even gains something from another. We study other people that preach and do things to get a feel for, delivery and how to approach things. In the black movement, we got a great brother. It's called Hubert Harrison. Anybody ever heard of him? Hubert Harrison died in 1927. He was big. He worked with Marcus Garvey. The only problem he had, he was too black. So he was too black for the socialists that wanted to control the movement. He was too black for some of the black people that wanted to creep along a little bit. You see what I mean? So he died in 1927, and you don't hear nothing about him. You got to find articles on Hubert Harrison because he was iced out of the whole history. We just looked up on a few things and heard about him, and then we Googled him, and there he was. Hubert Harrison. On the discussion of, let's call it, black power. Black power is something that we've had a lot to do with. But from an evolutionary direction, Of course, I'm from Oakland, and I was involved with groups there. In fact, we even went into exile. I went into exile. I lived in Algeria for a time. And when I was in Algeria, I found that the brothers there in exile, was doing a couple of things that was totally against progress. Number one, they was focusing on, remember the Jahiliyyah, they're focusing on women. This is in a Muslim country. They may have some colonial corruption, but the guidelines about sisters are still the same. Because you might see people with French style. You would see women in miniskirts on the bus up and down the street. But they still had an Islamic, and had in the back of their mind, and their society had those Islamic customs. The Negro didn't understand it. The Negro left here talking about revolution, and he went over there. And the first thing was telling him, man, you want to get down for real, knock over, them girls. They was actually wearing niqab. Then and now. I mean, people wasn't wearing no niqab here, even up till a few years ago. And people were not praying in the Masjid a lot. But if you went into a store, you would see that might be a pause. The guy was in the back and he was praying. You could look back and he would be praying. So the Islamic movement didn't really take hold big until the 80s and the mid-80s, early and mid-80s. But the people were Algerians, so they were Muslims. That's the culture. And when I met up with one of the leaders in Tanzania a couple of years later, I asked him, well, what happened up there in Algeria? Because I had read some of the Western press and it said the Arabs got tired of them, black people. And they said, man, it was messing with the sisters that got us throughout. And I said, well, what did you expect? Negroes going to go over there and bring a Negro culture to a Muslim country. That means even if you kind of practice in Islam, there's certain things that don't go. And then I said, there's a couple of more things that y'all was doing. I said, every day or every other day, y'all was going down to the Rue de Douche Mourad, copping hashish and getting high. I said, and I told y'all then, that's non-rebel, that's not revolutionary. Anyway, we had a meeting. We'll get back to the subject of black power in a minute. But we had a meeting, and Eldridge was there, and everybody was there. Sekou Odinga, Pete O'Neill, Connie and them, everybody that you read about, which most of them have passed away now. I think Kathleen Cleaver is still alive. Sekou Odinga is still alive up in New York. Pete O'Neill is still alive over in East Africa. Bud Setaway and all of them has passed away. We had a meeting after I was there a while, and I was a big-time Negro, so I donated a lot to the party when I went there, and other times. But I donated so we could we could train over there and come back and take over America. Wait, remember now you're young, so you're thinking, you're pretty bad. And so you come to find out that I told him about a plan that I had. I said, I messed around a little bit with certain things. So I said we could start a drug cartel, and because the revolution needs money, so you're going to need big money. So we can do that, and then Every revolution needs bullets and money and all that. And now half of the brothers agreed, the other half didn't. And they said, we can't do it because it's against our principle. I said, well, y'all staying high all the time. I just said, forget it. I said, I'll do it myself. So I went down to Tanzania a while, stayed up in Scandinavia for a minute. Then I went to South America. The first stop was Mexico, where I knew things was because I was doing it before. Then I went down to Peru. They said, if you want better prices, you're going to have to go next door to Bolivia. So I was thinking, where's Bolivia? I was trying to remember our little fourth grade social studies books on where everything was. And Bolivia was next door. And so I got down, but then a person told me, and this is 50 years ago, said, if you want to get down for real, he said, I have friends up in Colombia. Now, Colombia wasn't what it is now. Peru and Bolivia was that in those days, because that's where cocoa leaves grow. It said, hey, man, I got friends up in Colombia. Now, Colombia, as he was saying, Colombia got two borders, one on the Atlantic coast or in the Caribbean, and one on the Pacific coast. So you got two ways to go, that is up here. Anyway, I went to Colombia, and I had an idea. I started inviting Negroes down, and the idea was they don't have a distribution network up here yet. But if we let them go, they're going to get one soon. So my goal in Colombia was to have the Colombians, right, give us all their stuff. Sell it to us, not give it. And then they would control the production, and then we would control the transportation and distribution. Okay, because they was fishing, trying to find, they had a relative in New York. They would, hey, I got bags of this. Can you do anything with it? So if they fish around for a few years, they're going to get it. And that's what they did. But our idea was, it was that black mafia stuff type thing, that not like Philadelphia, but good guys. And cocaine, in those days it was before crack, so cocaine was the only thing that wealthy people, you know what I mean, and rich white folks did. Politicians, movie stars, all of that. And hustling Negroes would spend all their money on one spoon or 1 gram of cocaine for $100 in those days. I don't know what it is now. Can you imagine? 1 gram. That was the price. $100. Okay. Now, for $100, I could buy 28 grams down there, or an ounce. So, what kind of business you think we're going to go into? And we went into business. And Negroes would come down. And the idea was to gain control of the market here, because most of the people was Negro hustlers and white people, which the whole market was already ours up here. So that's what under the guise, don't forget now, we're talking about black nationalism. Black nationalism or black power mean that you control your neighborhood. Anything that goes and comes in your neighborhood, you control it. Black mafia was basically the same thing, that they would, whoever they was, would control and maintain their neighborhood, where they would get the benefits. So, as they began to do this trade, they would also start businesses. and civic organizations. All of that would come from the produce, right, of whatever it was you was dealing with. So I dealt mainly with marijuana and other things, kind of powdery stuff. And I mean, we was up there. We got to a point that all of a sudden I quit. I just walked away from it. And I walked away from it for certain reasons, because it was time to walk away from that. And we had a deal in the works. Didn't nobody know about it but a few of us involved. I walked away from it in the middle of the deal, because I used to live in Hermosillo in Mexico, as Sonora. And the idea was to open spots along the border. This is a long border, you know. And supply those spots, and every now and then you send a load over, and you home free. Because getting it to Mexico was easy. And actually getting it to the United States inside was easy at that time. But the idea was to establish a black framework of something, an economy that we controlled, that we maintained, and we got the benefits of. Since we was the customers anyway, now you got to realize something. This is before crack and all that. That's years, decades later. So cocaine was only people used it was people had money, because it was so expensive. So it ain't like heroin. It ain't like crack now, boy. People they put the devil might not have been in it from Jump Street like heroin, but somebody redevilized that thing. That whatever it do, it wasn't recognizable during our time. So anyway, the idea was something that one of the great speakers of our time, C.L. Franklin, Aretha Franklin's father, he was talking about black power. And he was talking about a book that he read, and an experience that he had with what was called black power. And you can look it up right now. If you got one of them phones, you can hear it. It's a good lecture. It's a little late, because his thing came out in 1969. So in 1969, we were already in the middle. It was 68, 69, 70, 71. We was already in the middle of what we were doing in Oakland. Number one, everybody looked at the black nationalist movement, and it went through certain phases. The first is the civil rights, freedom riders, and all that type of stuff. But our idea was that we had to control, we call our portion East Oakland Enterprises. East Oakland Enterprises during our time was exactly the thing that Martin Luther King went to Chicago to do. It was an economic enterprise. If y'all remember the civil rights stuff you watch, remember Martin Luther King in 1968 in Chicago? He moved from down in Dixie to Chicago. Why? To help develop an economic base. Why? Because he realized that education, all that march in the street is fine, but you have to have an economic base. We knew that from Jump Street. Therefore, and I done showed y'all all the pictures, so you all, most of you know that this is not made up. It might sound like it's made up, but technically it's not made up at all. So, with this black power in mind, black nationalism in mind, we cranked up in Oakland. And there was two forces in Oakland. It was the Black Panther Party, and it was us. Now, half of our organization had been in the party, and in East Oakland, the office, I'll show you a picture sometime, the office of the Black Panther Party was like right here on East 14th. Next to it was Jerry's Pawn Shop, and you went back to our place, which was in the back of Jerry's Pawn Shop, but you could go out of our side window in the bedroom, and you could go into the office of the Black Panther Party. In other words, we was home folks. Half of our people, you see the pictures, some of them with the Sacramento, carrying guns with the Black Panther Party. Over half of the group that was my group it was black orientated already. So all I told them, you want to do something for black people, you get with me and we're going to manage this whole thing, which we did. East Oakland Enterprises became the economic engine in Oakland. That's why when we had to leave, we went to where the Black Panther Party was, in Algeria, right? So when we run off from Oakland, that's where we went. And we took them resources, and we wanted them to be successful. Because by that time, we really into revolution, because the police had been doing like they do now, just slaughtering our people, doing whatever they want to do. So we say we're gonna deal with that, and we're going to deal with it on the international level. The only thing was, the people that was in exile, they didn't say they didn't want to come back and take over America, but they wasn't doing much to get ready for that. Number one, the only people that did any physical fitness or physical training that I knew of was Sekou Dinga and myself. And we would go out on the beach and we would run in the day and we would actually play basketball. That's good physical fitness. One-on-one is some of the best physical fitness you're going to get in. Anyway, so people there was not training to come back to America and spread no revolution. And we realized that soon. But we told them, when we had a big meeting, hey, why don't we start this type of thing and that'll buy us all? They said, oh, we can't do it. I said, don't worry about it. I'm going to do it myself then. And that's where I come in down in South America. And it picked up. We never lost a shipment. And we got black people involved. In those early days, we was involved not in the production, but on the transportation and distribution. We hooked up transportation routes and all of it. In fact, our routes, we called them the Negro route, Of course, they still use it now. They down there use it. Mexico, United States. Why? You bring it to Mexico first, and you get ready to bring it into the United States. You don't bring it straight from Colombia. Well, now you might have to do any kind of thing because they got the border so hooked up for the last decades. The point I'm making is about this concept of black power. To us, black power was an evolutionary process. Just like the whole black movement, it starts in civil rights, right? Freedom rides and all that. And then it gets into kind of like black power, black nationalism. And then, before we know it, Imam Jamil, H. Rap Brown, that's where the movement is. And everybody in the movement is becoming Muslims that survived. Some stayed into that black stuff. But now, when we talk about evolution, we also have to talk about us as a movement, as an organization. Okay. and I'll try to put out a few things. This is from back in the 80s, like 86. Because out of our experience, we always wanted to transfer what we had learned, right, into the Islamic format. So here we have drugs and their effects on the individual, on the family and friends, on the community. Drugs as a means of exploitation and control of the black community. What can and what should we do to save ourselves from this deadly disease and its destructive elements? So this is back in 86. And each weekend we would have one of these lectures. So that was where we talked about drugs and their effects on the community. And we did all that we could to affect the situation, but in truth, you can see what we have now, and you could see that trying to affect drugs in the United States as a small organization would be like shoveling sand before at the seashore, just wash it away. But we never forgot our concepts. And we always looked at Islam as a solution to the problems that we had. And now I want to Islamic Institute of Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. This is 2011, 10 years ago. One of the things it talks about, together, we must develop a plan of action to work with missionary zeal to bring about and play a role in the earth liberation movement, which aims to free the earth from the parasitical behavior of man, establish a non-predatory system of interconnected global harmony, nurture and further a culture of earth first, that is custodianship, understand and respect the rights of the earth, which should be treated as a living organism, which it is, and envision and actualize a global redesign for the 21st century. That means, and this is 10 years ago, we have to, and we thought at that time, and we still think the same thing, that we have to, during our century, during our time, and the time is right now. This is 10 years ago, December 4th, 2011. This is about 10 years ago, 2021. I want you to envision the world as it is now. It's almost gone. Not only then, we wrote a thing, Decline and Fall of the American Empire. Again, 2011. Decline and Fall of the American Empire. So we was talking about, this will give you an idea, loss of economic clout thanks to shrinking share in world trade, decline of American technological innovation, the end of the dollar privileged status as the global currency. If you listen to the news right now, you'll see that last month, the United States suffered a humiliating defeat. After being in Afghanistan for 20 years, they left with their tail between their legs and they got washed up bad. And now they're the laughing stock of the world. Everybody is saying, boss man, what happened to you, man? You was big. It's like some of our brothers that was big in the neighborhood and they get 4 or 5 cases and they go flat broke. And the people said, man, you was big. What happened? You was driving Rolls Royces, Benzes, and everything, and now you walking. What happened? That's the way Boss Man is. Boss Man was big. And now he's a stumble bum that can't do nothing right. Everything is the joke, and a joke is always on him. Always on him, right? And to everybody else, this is a surprise. What happened, Boss Man? Why are you acting so funny? Well, let's go back to 2011 again, because 10 years ago was real protracted struggle. Step number 1, destabilizing. Step number 2, temporary transformation. This is about the Arab Spring. Does anybody remember that? Everybody was jumping up and down about the Arab Spring 10 years ago. We say ain't nothing happened. Here's what's going to happen. We outlined it right here and we passed it out for everybody to see. Step 2, organizing unity of opposition. So, if you look at Syria, if you look at Iran, Iraq, and then you jump over to Yemen, right? And Hezbollah in the Lebanon, right? You're looking at the organization of unity. That's what it says. Step 3, organizing unity of opposition. All of those people are all under the eye of the United States of America and the Zionists. They hate them all. Although Saudi Arabia, the richest Arab country in the world, is fighting against Yemen, the poorest Arab country in the world, right? That's exactly what's happening. And ain't nobody saying nothing about it. Unity of opposition. Semi-consolidation. The further we go along, the more consolidated our friends are becoming. And I want you to remember, just turn on the TV. The problems that's going on in Lebanon, Hezbollah has been able to relieve a lot of the pressure. If anybody paid any attention to that which is happening in Lebanon right now. Step number 4, regional vision. So this national vision that everybody had, a Syrian vision, an Iranian vision, an Iraqi vision, right? A Yemeni vision is going away. And they're developing an Islamic vision, which is stabilized in regionalism. In other words, they're all in that region. They all right now are the dominant force. And that's why Saudi Arabia is encouraged to fight against them. And they getting tired and ready to quit because they ain't having no action, right? They're just losing day in and day out. And our team has already developed that regional vision. Remember this 10 years ago. So we already did this. And final victory. During that time, the decline and fall of the American empire. This may be 10 years ago, but can you see it now that Boss Man is done for? Boss Man is gone. And we've been talking about this and pointing the way all along. Just like from the very beginning, we've been trying to point heroes for you like this. The only problem that Hubert Harrison had is he was too black for the 1920s. Too black. He believed that blacks should run their show. He was blacker than Garvey because he worked with Garvey. Because Garvey wanted to take everybody back to Africa. He said, oh, no. We're going to get down here. Both of them was from the islands, of course, Jamaica, somewhere down that way. So these ideas, now the same thing that happened to him is exactly the same thing happened to us. Isolation, being cut off, right? Not having a platform to speak on. But in reality, we didn't need their platform. We don't need their platform. Number one, everything is going our way. And I want to talk a little bit about that for a minute before we close. So Black Power was a concept from 50 years ago. We developed the only, in Oakland, East Oakland Enterprises was the only functional black nationalist. They had the Black Panther Party down the street. In fact, we were so close together we could hold hands. Not only visibly and physically, but organizational wise. In our organization, people that wanted to be political was run with them and us. People that wanted to be semi whatever we was, they ran with them and they ran with us, right? But the only thing is we gained more power, more authority, and more influence in Oakland, although you hear about the Black Panther Party. It's just like you hear about Marcus Garvey, but you don't hear nothing about Hubert Harrison, right? That's why you don't think that they didn't hear about what we was about, because we had learned to have more strategic ability than the Black Panther Party. Strategic ability is the ability to design and fashion a system of behavior that have plans and structure and organization that you can develop a picture of the future. And you can develop a whole strategic behavior to reach that goal. That's what strategic behavior is. That your behavior leads you. That means your ideas, your plans, and everything leads you toward a certain destiny that you've chosen, you selected for yourself. It's where you want to go based on what you observe in your environment. All right. Right now, so that means we should want to be in the driver's seat for the 21st century. I do want to say a few things, or just one thing, it ain't going to take but a second. Is whatever go on, we're going to stay on this battlefield, whatever you want, battle space. That's because that's what we do. We're not influenced by who's there with us, who's talking about us, who's happy with us, how many people we got, house full, empty house. That don't have nothing to do with it. That we're going to stay on this line that we believe. Remember, we started with the Quran. What is the Quran? It gives you hidayah, it gives you guidance. It gives you design where? From people that you've seen before in history, right? So you have the Quran, you have the Hadith, right? Then you have history. And then you have you. We use those four. Other people use Quran, they use the Sunnah, right? And of course they use some history. But they let it stop there. No, the history and all that goes before that is to give you a feeling for where you should go from where you at now. And just like we outlined this stuff decades ago and it's coming out, that means that we have to have some feeling of what we're talking about. Have to have, especially when it comes out word for word. Like you've been thinking about. That means whatever you about, you got the Quran, you've been paying attention to it. You got Hadith, you've been paying attention to it. You got history, you have to been listening and think about it. If you had the ability to travel all over the world, right? And when they're talking about colonialism, you're there in Africa with them. When they're talking about Scandinavian socialism, you're in Scandinavia, in Denmark, in Sweden. You're seeing it, smelling it, tasting it. You're right there, right? When they're talking about Islam, you get the early smells in Algeria and Egypt and all of those places. When they're talking about Idi Amin and Uganda and all of that, just imagine you're there or next door on all this stuff that's going on in our history. And you're doing different than other people. Other people might be making that same journey, but they're doing it to come back and talk about it and become an expert, right? And a scholar on the black movement. And we'd have a delegation every week coming from the United States. All the great poets, Gwendolyn Brooks and all of those people. They would be right there in East Africa with us. But they was there to write poetry. They were not there to develop a movement, right? And so, everybody else may have a name and the credentials, but it's our job to go on and get down. We did it before. Everybody heard about Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton. Everybody in Oakland knew about us, right? But ain't nobody outside knew nothing about it. Because they got all the credit. Great. They got the credit and the heat too to go with it. I showed y'all a picture once when I was going into a disguise. The Negro with the Black Panther stuff on, black leather jacket, stingy brown. And I showed you a picture not long after that. Pretty white suit, meek hat and all that, mowed down in Superfly now. And one was a disguise. Why? Because the government says as long as the nigga doing that, driving them pretty cars and talking out the side of their mouth, right? Long as he got his car got mink in it and carrying on, he ain't thinking about no rebellion. What they was thinking. It was a disguise. It's the same thing about his disguise right this minute. Well, it's not too much of disguise now because boss man, this and all came and hit him. And so we telling him where we're coming from and he can look and see where you're coming from. But the days of trying to convince boss man to do right is moving toward not an end, but we got some stuff we got to do here, and then we're going back to Oakland to finish up some of the stuff we got to do there. And then we have to establish the phase that we're going to operate on now. And this part of the 21st century, let's call it the second half of the first part, something like that, 2000 to 2021, 21 to 25, from 25 to 50. So we'll call it the second part of the first act. Yeah, this is 2021. So we're getting ready to roll. Well, you can't do. We cannot not do it. If we've been successful on everything we've been doing, why we can't do it on this? And now we got stacks of information and direction. And remember, our team is moving into position. All of our team is just like we are. They've been under the gun. Good God Almighty. Whether it's isolation of Iran, what they do to them in Lebanon, right? What they're doing to the people in Yemen. Now, all of our allies, Iraq, been destroyed. They destroy your country, and then they just drive away and leave it destroyed. Iraq was one of the most progressive countries in the so-called Middle East. They said they wrote books in Lebanon, printed them in Egypt, or vice versa, and they read them in Iraq. You go back a couple of decades ago, Iraq was the center of progress in that region, and they done laid it waste. They done destroyed the whole infrastructure. But yet, after the war, Iran and Iraq, right? You look at Iran now, Iran is into the 21st century. And Iran is on a roll. And Iran is, this new economy is transforming the world as we know it. Right now, right today. So what I say to y'all is we are an evolutionary movement. Just like we move from freedom rides to marching and jumping up and down in the street to a type of black nationalism or black power. And remember, the subject is because if y'all just type in your little phone about black power, the lecture of Dr. C.L. Franklin, 1969, he gave a great talk on black power. We gave the same one here, but it was a little more detailed. But see, when boss man get a look at where you're going, he comes and interrupts that. And we welcomed him at that time. We welcome boss man. Come on in, boss man. We know how you are. So boss man got, or was, if we've been doing this a little over 40 years, the Islamic part, boss man been there from day one. That's the way it go. We already knew that from our history before, right? We knew what we was going to be dealing with. So we had to develop a system that could survive and thrive. And we had to develop the attitude. And the attitude that we had to develop comes out of Islam. Because La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah is based on that there is no God, no creator but Allah. And that creator is in charge of everything. And if you want to know how to behave in the world today, you look at his messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you need some extra direction, right, then you look at the people of old. Don't the Quran say, travel in the earth and see what was the end of those before you. That's history, right? We've done all that. And when we've done those three things, we come out with the fourth step. How does all of this blend in with what we have to do now? That's why we're here today. That's why we're here today. And technically, we ain't getting ready to go nowhere. We ain't talking crazy, but when you done fought boss man so long, you lose respect for him. Because you find out he's stupid. Everything that's happening to boss man right now proves that he is a buffoon, a clown, and he's stupid. Actually, literally stupid. His economy, he won't get control of it. right? He got people that work with him in Iraq, work with him in Afghanistan, work with him everywhere, and he run off and leave all of those people. Then he start blowing up the people that he left behind, his own friends, right? And it's all on their TV. And then boss man, he got a different idea what he want to do with China. So he says, well, Australia's over there in China, so I want you to cancel this deal we got with France on submarines, and then me and you, Australia, we're going to box in China. And everybody waiting on them. It ain't working. What does it do? It make the people. Do you know who helped save the United States during the Revolutionary War? Right? Just take a guess. It was the French. It was the French. The French helped them out. De Tocqueville came over here during all the 20s and talked about the great experiment called America. During World War I, during World War II, all of them, the French and the Americans, been home folks. And then 2 weeks ago, the U.S. said, well, that's it. We're going to get, hey, Australia, why don't you get some nuclear submarines from us? Just think about it. This is 2021. When the hell are they going to have them things ready? 2031 or something? They want this, the world will be different. You see how quick things are changing now? Imagine when they get them things ready and they've cut their friend's throat, their best friend. They cut their throat, right? What do you think the world looks at, boss man? That T-shirt we wear, I got it under here, boss man bites the dust. We've been saying that. It's true. Boss man bites the dust. What are you and I going to do in the meantime? I'm going to mention a few things and close up. So we're part of the struggle inside of the United States. So that means we have decades of, let's call it, counter-revolutionary struggle inside of the United States. Islamic Institute for Counter-Zionist American Psychological Warfare. You say, what is that? Well, that's what we've been doing to boss man. And we're still here. We're still here. You got to remember, whatever you think, we're still here. And whatever you can hear, we've been saying this all along. Right? And what can boss man do about it? Nothing. He haven't done nothing. A little infiltration, sabotage. He tried to divert you. So what? When you do what you're doing, you're inviting him to do that. So everybody can see you and you survive. Now, guess what? Where's all the coons? Not coons, but the brothers. Whether they're in New York, whether they're around here, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're going around talking about each other. You're not part of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Some dumb stuff. One of the guys, the last time, because they put me out of these penitentiaries, I was giving a talk at a penitentiary over there on Highway 168. I'll think of its name in a minute, in Maryland. Federal joint. So one of these guys, Imam Musa, I want to ask you, where's Allah? I said, where's Allah? I said, hey, good question. Allah is on his throne, and his throne is over the waters. I said, so Allah is a big physical being. He's sitting on the throne, and that throne is over the waters. Could that be an allegory or something like that? No. Ayatul Kursi, Allah is on the throne. Does it mean power or something like that, Majesty? Then where is Allah? I said, well, right here in my neck. Right here in my neck. Astaghfirullah, I said, you said Allah can be special places. The Quran says Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. Isn't that right? I said there, Allah is right there in my neck. Astaghfirullah. I said, well, then mind your own business. Stop asking them dumb questions about Allah sitting on a throne somewhere. No vision can grasp him, and his vision is beyond all vision. What are you thinking about? There he is sitting down, like one of them Greek gods. Them Greek gods, they sitting on a throne and talking all that mess. Who you follow? I said, I'd follow. And at that time, they was following bin Baz. Big sheikh in Saudi Arabia. So you follow bin Baz? And you believe in that physical stuff that's talking about in the Quran? I said, well, you following a blind man in this world, and he's going to be blind in the hereafter. Astaghfirullah. I said, don't the Quran say they blind in this world, then they're going to be blind over there. Isn't that right? So these Negroes want to talk that old physical chit-chat, and then they get mad. Astaghfirullah. I said, what are you talking about? You said Allah is sitting on a throne and the stone is over the water. This is insanity. It's not possible. It's not even likely. I mean, if Allah wanted to sit on the throne, he could. I don't know what. I'll take that back. That is not nowhere in the dictionary and nowhere likely. But you got to see these meatheads. Those meatheads try to divert you. Those meatheads tried to get you away from your focus on Islam through that junk, right? I call it junk because it just don't make sense. Everything is misinterpreted. Okay. So, and what we're doing, we're going to have, believe it or not, we call it the Department of Utopian Studies. That we're going back to California. We're going to write a quick pamphlet, distribute it out here, and then we're going back to California. First, we was going to, you know how boss man been mistreating us, so we was going to charge him $200 million. You said, that nigga is crazy. But now we're going to do $300 million because we need more. Yeah. He done broke all the laws. There's nothing you can get away. He can't get away with it. He can't say, he can try stuff like a time limit. You missed that time. On certain things, you steal property, you steal this, you can't do, there ain't no time limit. And so, that's what we're saying. Now, all the money we get, or if we don't get no money, we just write books about it and give guidance. We don't, we ain't got we need this in order to do that. We don't say that. We believe in the dua that Allah give you whatever you need to go wherever He allows you or wants you to go for yourself so that you get the best out of this life. So the Department of Utopian Studies, that means in our university, we're going to have a department of utopian studies. What does that mean? That utopia, a good place, the nicest place that ever existed. Technically, it don't exist. But you're going to study developing a world, right, that don't even exist in front of your eyes. With the people, with the globe, you're going to clean. Don't worry about all this smoke going on earth and all this plastic. Don't worry about that. We're going to clean that up. Why? Because if we messed it up, then it's our job to clean it up. That's all it is to it. If the human being messed it up, right, then it's his job to clean it up. That if Allah didn't check one group of people by means of another, there would be much turmoil and oppression in the land. That's what Allah said. Department of evilistic studies. That's the shaitan, so we won't spend much time. It's the same evil he's been doing all the time. So if you have a dumb, evil, disunified thought, it's homeboy, that's him. But now, principle of angelic, historical, and institutional studies. I know this is long like white folks stuff say. Angelic studies. Studies. What would the angels do? How, right? All that type of stuff. We'll move toward strategic balance, strategic imagination, and a system of domestication. I'll start at the bottom. The system of domestication means that we've domesticated boss man to act the way we want for our benefit. I mean, you don't get everything you want, but just like you domesticate a cow, you domesticate other animals. Why you domesticate them? You domesticate them so that they do produce what you want to do. So that's the department. That means we have domesticated boss man. Now I tell you, people may not like what we say. That's all right. It's not that we don't care. But if we cared about what Negroes thought, we definitely wouldn't be here, right? Because the soul is always the same. You do like we want, you're going to be famous, you're going to be happy, and you're going to be rich. The only thing, I had got lucky before. So I was rich, I was popular, and all of that I had before I met them. And I know that if where I am now is 100, that was 2 or 3 or minus, right? Because all that stuff is material. Remember, where do you go if you want to find the craziest people in the United States? The crazy house? No, go to Hollywood. The people look better there. They're more famous, right? And they crazier than anywhere. There's more psychiatrists in Los Angeles and out there in Hollywood than anywhere in the United States. Because every movie star, listen to them for a while, for the last 30 years, last 40 years. Oh, my psych has said that they need a psychiatrist to help them go to the bathroom, whatever. They don't know nothing. The money run them crazy. Can you imagine you making movies about people being happy and you're not happy? You say something wrong, right? If I can make a movie about people being happy, why I can't be happy? Right? Because they're not doing the things that make people happy. They think you can get happiness in Hollywood. It ain't out there. All right, I'll move toward a close. So strategic imagination. To be able to visualize and imagine the world you want to live in and then put together the composited parts to help you get there. That's strategic brilliance. And I know you may not believe that the Negro can do that. But I tell you, you just look around. Either we're stark raving mad up here or we're telling the truth. That's all it is. There ain't no two things about it. Either we know exactly what we're talking about or we don't know nothing. That's all. In other words, all the stuff we said either didn't happen, can't happen, won't happen, and ain't right, or it did happen. Right? That's all up to everybody else. I'm going to move toward a close here. I know I started with the talk with Dr. C.L. Franklin, Aretha's father, about black nationalism or, and we'll get back to that at another time. Today we want to talk about evolution. Evolution for us, black nationalism and black power was only a step in evolution, it was not where we would move in and stay. We're going to stay there, right? This is what happened to other people. They got 1 or 2 steps and they stopped on the way of evolution. Okay. We don't want to talk about the Neanderthal boss man. You know who Neanderthal was. Okay. We want to thank everybody, not for just coming here, but for being around this environment. If you stay around this environment, maybe some of it will rub off. You never know. You might get the revolutionary spirit. Right. You may get up one day and go down to boss man's office, tell him, boss man, here's my badge. I don't want it no more. Yeah, that's right. Don't say you can't do it. You stay here long enough, you go down there and say, boss man, I'm tired of you. Plus, here's the thing. Let me tell you now. You can see it. Boss man, I got a wife, I got children, I got family, I got extended family. Some of them live in Jersey. Some of them live down there in New Orleans. And you ain't doing nothing to stop all that water from washing my relatives away, right? And you messing with everybody in the world, and now they all mad at you. They ain't mad at me. They mad at you. And you using all of my tax money and everything you got to help Zionists. Zionists are murderers, they're Nazis, they're killers. We don't want you using our money to help Zionists kill Palestinians, right? Hey, now boss man might get a little mad at you sometime. So right now, boss man is a paper tiger. That's what Chairman Mao said. He said he's a paper tiger. That means in the long run, he's going to turn into a paper tiger, just making noise and stuff. He said, but right now, he's a real tiger. He can chew you up and spit you out, right? So boss man is in the last stages of real tigerism. He can start wars and kill thousands and millions of people. He can inflate the money so you got to work instead of 8 hours a day, you got to work 16 hours a day to buy a bowl of soup. He can do that, right? But the more you do that, the madder you're going to get. Because some of y'all is old enough to remember the old days when it was low taxes. Your father could go to work and he could make enough money to feed a family of 5, buy a brand new Chevrolet by himself. You say that nigga's lying. No, that was right here in the United States. Right? That was right here. Try it now if you're so bad. Go on, get you a job and have you 4 or 5 children running around, drinking up all the milk, eating up all the cornflakes and stuff, right? Go ahead and get one job. One of the new jobs, not the big jobs at GM like they used to have. Do you know in 1980 they made $20 and $20-something a day at GM in 1980? That was a lot of money then. You know where Negroes was living in California? In the hills. They were driving big, pretty new cars, everything. Because they was rich. That was the last year, big year for GM. Right? After that, whoosh, and everybody else, Chrysler, whoosh, right? Okay, here's the way to make a better world. Let's all get together. Throw boss man out of your life. Say, boss man, I'm tired. Say, boss man, you lie so much, you just make me sick. I tell you, I can't even sleep listening to you all the time. And you got to do something where you're successful somewhere, right? Everything you're doing, boss man, people is getting killed and running in behind you. I don't care whether it's Afghanistan or wherever it is, and whoever you back up, they're a goner. So this is a good time to get rid of boss man. This is a good time to just go down and say, boss man, I had enough, I tell you. It's all over. I can't stand no more. Just tell him that. Well, you got to messing with me. I'll fix you. So you can't fix me. No, why don't you fix something in the society? What? You can fix me and you can't fix nothing else? Right? You're going to threaten me, but threaten the streets. Make them smooth. Right? Threaten the water. Tell the water, if you don't straighten up, I'm going to clean you up. Right? I'm going to clean you up. Right? Tell the plastic, if you don't deplasticize, I'm going to send you back to the smelter and melt you down. Right? Tell them that. The ocean is full of plastic, isn't it? Good God Almighty. The rivers are, you can smell a river now. You go smell it a half a block, maybe even half a mile away. Can you smell the river? That's different. But if you go in the Safeway, you can't smell the vegetables right there and you standing in the middle of the vegetable market, right? You ever been overseas? When you go through the vegetable market, you can smell it. Boy, it smells good. You can smell all of that fruit and vegetables. And you go here in America, tell me in last time you didn't smell something here. Right? You can't smell it. Something is wrong, dear believers. Something is wrong. Anyway, we're going to move toward a close. I know this is about the third or fourth close, but we'll get there in a minute. We'll talk about next time, write our own history. We're going to even bring up a dictionary of what our words and phrases mean. And that's part of our strategic behavior. And we are As-Sabiqun. As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun. And we're living up to that name. We're living up to that name. O Allah, we seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief. We seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. We seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness. We seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O Allah, suffice us with what is lawful. Keep from us what is prohibited. With thy grace, make us free from want of what is besides it. Ameen. Iqamati salam.